reorg meeting. I don't have a president's message. At this point in time, we usually have a little public comment. Jerry, has anybody signed up for public comment tonight?
No, sir.
Okay, Tom, would you like to nominate for the election of a temporary president?
I move that Uta Lowry be elected temporary president of the area school board of directors.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of appointing Uta or any opposed say no or nay at this time. Nothing heard. She is unanimously elected temporary president. Uta, the meeting is yours.
All right. Can we scroll the agenda? Thank you. We're going to move to elections of officers president.
Ms. Lowry, I take it you're asking for nominations right now.
Yes.
I nominate Walter Schroeth for the office of president of the Indiana Area School Board of Directors to serve until the first Monday of December 2021 or until a successor is elected.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I guess we vote. Do we do this roll call?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless anybody has any comments or questions on that.
Sure. Are there any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Jared, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Barb Barker?
Yes.
Tammy Blank?
Yes.
Cinder Brode?
Yes.
Julia Tamarki Kukuro?
Yes.
Tom Harley?
Yes.
Mr. Kerr?
Yes.
Mrs. Leeper?
Yes.
Mrs. Lowry?
Yes.
Mr. Schroeth?
Yes.
Okay, that is unanimous. Congratulations, Walter. Can we have a nomination for vice president, please?
I nominate Julia Tremarki Kukuro for the office of vice president of the Indiana Area School or Board of School Directors to serve until the first Monday of December 2021 or until a successor is elected.
Second.
Okay, do we have any comments, questions? Okay, hearing none. Jared, can we do another roll call vote, please?
Sure. Tammy Blank?
Yes.
Cinder Brode?
Yes.
Julia Tamarki Kukuro?
Thank you. Yes.
Tom Harley?
Yes.
Mr. Kerr?
Yes.
Mrs. Leeper?
Yes.
Mrs. Lowry?
Yes.
Mr. Schroeth?
Yes.
Barb Barker?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Great, congratulations, Julia. I will pass the meeting on to Mr. Schroeth.
Thanks, Uta, for a good job on that. Appreciate it. I also want to thank the board members on behalf of myself and Julia for your renewed confidence. Just went through one heck of a tough year, and fingers and toes crossed it'll be better in 2021 than it was in 2020. Our next item is a designation of regular and special meeting dates. Listed are these regular meeting dates on 4.1. 4.2 are the special board meeting dates. May I have motions to approve those two agenda items?
Sure, I move that we approve the regular meeting dates listed in 4.1 as well as the special board meeting dates listed in 4.2.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there questions, comments, or discussion about the meeting dates?
Walter, I just have a question. The meetings will continue to be virtual until further notice?
You know, Uta, as much as I would love to try to get back to the more normal routine, given all that's been going on in the countywide spread and the various directives that are coming out of Harrisburg, you know, we would certainly, it's certainly the will of the board, but at this point, I don't foresee a time when we wouldn't continue as we're currently doing. I wish I could say otherwise, and hopefully, as I said in my last comments there, the sooner the better, that we have a better year and can get back to something more approaching what we had a year ago.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, is there anything special about these meetings that you'd like to make a comment on? I assume we've maintained the second and fourth Mondays for most of these.
Yeah, no, I think there's a couple things, Mr. President. Thank you for the opportunity to speak up. Number one, first and foremost, I think it's important to remind the community, but required by law to conduct these meetings and our current status because of the size limit on crowds and gatherings. Now, you could move these meetings to a larger auditorium if you wanted to accommodate, you know, for social distancing. However, at this point, under our current confines within our current boardroom, this I feel is most in alignment with the law, most prudent action. Second thing, sir, if it's okay, I think there should be a discussion amongst the board if they're coupled with these dates and or maintaining the committee meeting schedule. I had a conversation with one board member and she brought up concern about the number of meetings. I said, look, I'd be glad to bring it up to the board and let the board decide what they want to do as far as committee meetings. The administration is willing to work however you want us to work. So we're fine either way, but I would like to get a pulse and some direction from this committee or from this board if we're going to maintain the committee session, you know, handout format, or if you want to change to a workshop type of format. But Mr. President, I'll defer to you on the conversation, sir.
Okay, I think Terry raised his hand. Terry, you have a comment or that you'd like to make at this point on our board meeting dates?
Yeah, two comments, but Barb had also raised her hand, I believe, before me. So, but while my mic's open, I'll finish, and then Barb, you can go after. Since you just mentioned about the committee meetings, Mike, I think our committee meetings and structure work well in the district. We specialize in all the different areas, and yes, there are a lot of meetings, but there's a lot of good discussion in them, and I think a lot of good outcomes because of that. So, and it gives the public more interaction with the board and the committees. But then the other thing I'm going to mention, the last thing is, last year I mentioned, is there any way we could cut out some of these board meetings? And I know we had canceled one or two this previous year, so I'd just like to remind the administration that if we can reduce the number of these, I'm all for it. Thank you, Walter, for the comment.
Okay, Terry, thank you. Barb, I missed your raising of the hand. If you raised your hand, please go ahead now, please.
Yeah, I was kind of piggybacking on Terry that last year, we were trying to operate underneath the premise of less of the special board meetings. If we didn't need to have a meeting, or if we could put everything together in one board meeting, to try to have less meetings, so there's less meeting fatigue. And also, I'm the one who asked about the committee structure. During the pandemic, I'm finding that all of us are going to all of the meetings. We're trying, before the pandemic, it was very more committee structured, where if you weren't on academic committee, that you could look at the agenda and not necessarily have to be there. But it seems that agenda items are being thrown on whatever committee comes next. And I'm finding that one is having to pay attention to all of the committees and come to all of the meetings, which defeats then the purpose of the committee structure. So I just question that maybe we should look at something different on grouping our meetings. I'd rather have a longer strategic meeting than lots of little short meetings.
Okay, Barb, thanks. I guess my only observation is that we've all actually had more special meetings, but that it's been driven by the COVID pandemic and having to respond sometimes in a week or less to directives coming from Harrisburg. And again, my hope is that with this vaccine and whatever other mitigating issues that are, coming down the pike, that we'll be able to overcome some of the negative impacts that it's had on our operations and get back to a schedule that we would have called normal a year or so ago. Uta, I think you raised your hand. Go ahead, please.
I did. I understand where Barb is coming from. The thought of having a longer meeting than our current board meetings on a Monday night, after spending anywhere from 8 to 10 hours in work meetings, for me is completely unappealing. And I'm not sure that I would be a very productive participant. I think the committee structure is working really well. I think we have a lot to be proud of that we've gotten done in this past year. And I do think if we don't have agenda items that for a meeting, I don't think we should meet just to meet because we have it on the calendar. But I do think that the structure currently seems to work well.
Cameron, I think you raised your hand. Your comments, please.
I agree with the committee structure, although Barb, I totally understand where you're coming from as well. I appreciate that the committee meetings allow our community to take part in the meetings actively, and it's just the informal nature of it, I think, is in line with our desire to have community involvement and transparency. So although it's been a little more hectic during the pandemic, I would support continuing with the committees.
Okay, Cinda, your hand's up at this point, and then Tom, I see yours next.
I agree with keeping the committees, and I do have to say that considering that I've been going to all of the meetings since the mega school stuff, I have to say that one of the only positive things Google Meets meetings
Cindy,
is that so many more.
Cindy, you were breaking up there after since the mega school. You were pretty broken up. Could you please repeat for us?
Yep. I'll turn off my camera too. That'll help maybe. Since the mega school times, I've been going to all of the meetings, and I do have to say that the one thing that I do find positive that has happened during the COVID situation is that the Google Meets meetings have allowed more board members to be able to attend the committee meetings. Not just the committees they're on, but we have more representation from the board, so the board knows better what's going on. They know what was discussed. I just think it's a better thing. So yeah, the meetings are long, but I think that we have a lot of work to do, and COVID has really added a lot to our plate. And hopefully, Walter, yeah, hopefully things will go back to being semi-normal next year.
Thanks, Cinda. Okay, Tom, go ahead.
Walter, I've experienced both methods of running the district, and the committee allows tremendous input from the not only the public but the teachers and the faculty. We're able to spend a few hours looking at curriculum, looking at things in depth, which a once a month board meeting cannot possibly do. I wish that we had less meetings. I'd like to have a Monday back every once in a while. So I encourage Mike to counsel the meetings. This schedule is set up for the publication, and it's easier to cancel a meeting than it is to schedule one. And I agree with Cindo. We've seen 70 and 80 people coming to the academic meetings, which is just phenomenal, and having good input. So I think we hold steady here. Keep going what we're doing. Thank you.
Okay, Tom, thanks. Anybody, your hand's still up, so punch the button. Anybody else have anything that board member add at this point? Okay, nothing heard. I actually think we were actually starting to make some progress towards trying to limit some of the meetings until, again, the COVID hit, and then that sort of changed everything. So we've got, do we have them? I don't believe anybody actually made a motion on 4.1, 4.2.
No, they were made, Walter.
They were? All right, can we have a, I'm sorry, what was that, Ron?
I was just saying correct. They were. Yeah.
Okay, so at this point in time, if there's no other discussion, let's take a vote. And again, we'll vote in the negative. If you object to these committee dates, please, I'm sorry, these board meeting dates, please say nay or no at this point. Nothing heard. The chair assumes that they passed unanimously. Okay, Randy, scroll me on down. Okay, committee appointment. Looks like we have to do a Psba appointment, and then any more discussion on the committee dates. May I have a motion to appoint the Psba liaison for the Indiana Area School District? I think, is Julia, are you in that position right now?
You guys are trying to hide.
Yeah, I know you turned your camera off.
I've got it on. I thought I was liaison I don't quite know how it happened.
Well,
I was contacted by the Psba, and they said, we're going to push you down for the liaison, and I thought you guys set me up. But then I found out that actually he was being quite serious. So I've been getting an email. I'm supposed to start getting emails, but I haven't yet. I don't mind doing it, but just so I'm clear that I don't quite know how the whole thing. I didn't volunteer. I'll tell you that much.
okay, so may I?
I'll make a motion, Walter, that Julia Tremarky-Kukuro be appointed to serve as Psba liaison for the Indiana Area School District, and we'll take 5.4 at the same time. Discussion on board committee and dates, academic extracurricular first Monday, policy and personnel second Monday, building ground transportation third Monday, audit finance the fourth Monday of the month.
Okay, can I have okay, Tamara, thank you. Any comments, questions, or discussion on these two motions?
I do. Julia, thank you for doing this. Just one more thing to add to your plate. And I do have a question about the extracurricular and academic meetings. I know they've always been on the first, but I think that was the case with the previous setup too, and we missed many because often the first Monday is Labor Day and all of those extra days. So do we have safeguards in there so we're actually meeting monthly? Because I feel like the academic committee is the most important committee. That's why we're here. And I just want to make sure that we're not only meeting 6 months of the year.
That's a good question, Ms. Leeper. If you're okay with it, I'll work on it tomorrow, get the dates picked out, and then if the board so chooses, if you want me to make sure I include it, Ms. Lowry, are you okay if maybe I piggyback 2 meetings? Or maybe if I don't have a big agenda on your policy personnel, I can always bump academic or some sort of combination. That way we have at least monthly academic. Would you be okay with that, Ms. Lowry?
Yeah, the only challenge with academic and extracurricular is oftentimes it goes the whole hour, hour and a half or longer. And if you put it right in front of a board meeting, we just need to make sure we stay on schedule with an hour.
Yep. I'll look at the calendar tomorrow, see how many holes we find, and we'll go from there.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What happened to outreach committee? I don't see it on the list.
I believe that we decided to abandon it about a year ago. And I think that we are reaching out to PTAs, and I personally was the chair of that committee for a while, and I was co-chair with Barb, and we didn't have a lot of people attend, and community can come and talk about everything else at every specific meeting. So we didn't get a lot of attendance, and yeah, so I think, Mike, didn't we abandon it around the time that we abandoned the family newsletter, or the building letters?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I think that at that time the committee thought a better approach would maybe going to the buildings, going through the buildings and PTAs and PTOs and trying to have that. But that was before.
Right. Oh, that's right. That was supposed to start this. Right. Yeah.
Yep. And it's up to the board. We can always bring it back if the board so chooses as well. It's up to you. Oh.
Well, if I recall, oh, sorry, Tamara.
No, I was just going to say, I'm sorry, because I interrupted Mike, but yeah, we were supposed to have like every meeting, every building was supposed to have like coffee with the principal to allow parents to actually come to that level. So it would be less intimidating than coming to the board meetings and really focus on the happenings of each school.
Yeah, I tried to schedule some meetings like the 4th. There's 3 Mondays, 3 months in the year where there's 5 Mondays to schedule a meeting. And so I thought it was worked out that if outreach was needed, it would be integrated into each committee meeting. So when, if we needed outreach towards parents for, say, the East Pike Entryway, that outreach would be integrated into the Buildings and Grounds meeting, that each committee itself should be talking about outreach and how to do a better job. And that we would have a specific meeting if we needed to change our policies for outreach and how we handle communicating. And I think Mike's been doing an excellent job at communicating. That's why I haven't called a meeting necessarily, because he's been on top of it.
Barb and Tamara, I just didn't know what had happened, so that's why I was asking my question.
So if we are effectively abandoning the committee, I think, Mike, that we should probably have a formal motion, not doing away with that committee, but having the board acknowledge that the committee is not going to be manned, and that the outreach will either be done through the administration or through the standing four committees that we have.
Well, I think there should be. I'm not so much for abandoning the committee. I think we need oversight over communications. It's such a big factor. I mean, I don't think it has to meet all the time, but I had no idea we were supposed to be talking about our outreach at other committee meetings. But I think it's an important committee, and I wish it were more, had been used. I understand with the pandemic, it's been hard, but I do support the committee system. So I would support still having it, maybe in a different format, but I nevertheless support it.
Mr. President, what I'll do is I'll look at the calendar and see how I can make the committee meetings fit, and I'll bring a proposal by the end of the week to the board to consider. That includes the reincorporation of the outreach committee, but maybe we'll do something at a lesser extent and see how we want to go forward. Is that acceptable by you, Mr. President, and the board?
It would certainly be acceptable to me, Mike, and I'll defer to the board at this point for their thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I do too. Thank you.
I appreciate Barb's comments, complimentary to the administration, but I think that given the pandemic and the situation at the pandemic, Um, uh, Almost the more communication we have, I think is the better. And so even if there's some way to incorporate the board level in those communications, whether it's through the outreach or whatever, I think that would ultimately be a good thing, particularly if we're faced with other years like we had this year. So go ahead, Mike, go ahead and put something together for the board to consider. And in the meantime, we'll kind of approve the 4 standing committees, and then we'll take a look at the outreach, at our meeting in January.
Yes,
Mike,
sir.
would you also include the times of these meetings? Can you do that?
Yes, sir. I can do that.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think it's ready to take a vote, Walter. You're on mute, Walter.
I'm sorry, anybody objecting to these, please say nay at this point. Nothing heard. The chair assumes that they passed unanimously. Okay, I think we can get down to the closing. It'll be a regular meeting following this meeting here directly, and our next regularly scheduled meeting after that will be January the 11th, 2021, to discuss general purposes.
Walter, do we have to do Aaron and ICTC appointments?
I think the way that works, Barb, is that those appointments are for more than 1 year, and we only have to make those appointments when there's a vacancy or when their term expires. And I'm assuming, Mike, I'll ask you to weigh in on this, but I'm assuming that either Aaron or ICTC, those positions are not expiring at this point.
It's not, to my understanding, we're okay, sir, but I can always double check, but I think we're okay, sir.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Barb?
Yes, I'm rather enjoying being on the Aaron board right now.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that. All right. May we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those,
Can I just ask a question? Are we staying on this link for the regular? Okay. Thanks.
anybody objecting to the adjournment at this point? Nothing heard. We stand adjourned from the reorg meeting. Can I have the agenda, Randy, for the regular meeting? There we go. Okay, I'll call the regular meeting for the Indiana School Board to order. And again, we'll have a pledge of allegiance. Rob, if you would, please.
Yes, sir. If everyone would please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Roll call, Jared.
Yes, sir. Barb Barker,
Yep.
Tammy Blank,
Here.
Cinda Brode,
Present.
Julia Tamarki Kukrow,
Present?
Tom Harley,
Here.
Mr. Kerr,
Present.
Mrs. Leeper,
Present.
Mrs. Lowry,
Present.
Mr. Schroeth.
Here. Okay, thanks, Jared. Again, I want to welcome all of the public members to our virtual meeting. Thank you all for coming out on a Monday night. There is no president message. Has anybody signed up for public comment, Jared?
No, sir.
Okay, no public comment. Is anybody here from IAEA, ASME, SGA, or Stuka? Nothing heard. All right, Superintendents Report. Mike, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll try to make my comments brief. I just want to reiterate to the board and to the public that we did sign and approve the attestation, submitted that to the state. And it's just a reminder that we're going to monitor our numbers and our cases and adhere to our local approved plan, which means 2 to 4 cases we close down for 3 to 7 days. We're going to stay steadfast to that and adhere to that. And it's important to make sure the public's aware of that and reminded of that. I sent a communication out earlier this week or last week, reminding parents about the possible closure, letting them know that one could come if our cases rise while we're open. Now, at this point, I do want to make a point of clarification. The letter I just sent out about the cases that we notify happened over the holiday break, so they do not count towards our numbers. Any cases that occur in the school that are school related during the time we're open, they would count, and we'd be subject to that chart that we signed an attestation to agreeing to follow, and we will follow that. And the letter we sent out to parents was not to create paranoia or fear, but to, again, constantly remind them that a closure could happen, and if it does, we'll do our best to communicate in a timely manner. I think one thing, even though I feel like we're overwhelming parents, that's not our intent with all the emails. Our goal is rather to over-communicate, and we're going to stay steadfast to that, as this is an ever-changing situation, and we're going to continue to monitor it and inform and communicate as we see fit, because I think we're all in this together, and it got it this far, and we want to continue to do that. And with that said, Mr. President, I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. Looking forward to the winter Christmas holiday season as well, and I appreciate everyone's time. And you're here tonight, and I appreciate it as well, sir.
Okay, Mike, thanks. Ron, looks like we've got a solicitor's report next. Anything from your side of the house?
Thank you, Mr. President. If it's okay with the board and president, I actually wanted to address 8.5, the assessment appeal. Figured it'd be a good time now to speak about it because it is on the agenda. We are requesting authority for me to file an action for 2 assessment appeals. That's Copper Beach Townhomes and Campus Crest, and those are decisions that were made by the assessment board that reduced the taxes that would be paid to Indiana area school districts in the amount of almost $50,000. So for that reason, we are requesting to enter a petition to appeal, which will go to the Court of Common Pleas, and we will file that appeal with the option of going out for an appraisal and hoping to get a better value than the assessment office gave to the taxpayers. So I just wanted to bring that up now so that there was an opportunity for both the public to understand what that motion is requesting and for the Board of School Directors. Likewise, as Mr. Vukovic stated too, there's two items. One is the attestation that was signed by the board president and superintendent. And again, that attestation was required under the new secretary update. And the secretary indicating that you either had to choose to sign that so that there was an opportunity to potentially bring at-risk students or in-person instruction at any point in time. Or the second option would have been to close down and go remote until we go into the moderate. And the board did choose option 1, which is the option that we have been recommending the districts. It gives you more flexibility. Finally, I did want to give you a quick update. Senate Bill 1216, actually, Senate Bill 1216 was approved by the governor on the 25th. It was the day before Thanksgiving. Senate Bill 1216 essentially is a quasi Act 13, if you recall, on the transportation. And what that requires is that the Board of School Directors has to pay for non-public school transportation. So even if the public school is closed and the non-public school is running transportation services, Senate Bill 1216 or Act 135, it's called, requires us to continue to pay for those transportation services. So again, that was signed by the governor before the holiday season broke. With that, Mr. President, that was all I had, unless there's any questions for me.
I don't have any at this time. Any board members, questions for Ron while we've got him on the line? Nothing heard. Thanks, Ron. Okay, Randy.
Mr. President, just while I do have you, I did notice in the chat it says several STA employees are here, just so you saw that.
Okay, that sounds good. And that bill that you were mentioning would directly affect them. Is that correct?
Actually, the 1216 affects, there was a lot of implications. First, it talked about the Keystone exams. It spoke about transportation services. It actually spoke about teacher certificates and giving them an extension. So there was a lot that went into the bill. I was just hitting the highlight of that, non-public school transportation services.
Okay, I don't believe we have any presentations tonight. Looks like we're down to approval of the minutes and the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda and minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes of the November 16th and 30th board meetings as submitted and the agenda for the December 7th meeting.
Second.
Okay, moved in second. We'll vote in the negative. Anybody opposed to either of those two motions, please say no or nay at this point in time. Nothing heard. The chair assumes it unanimously approved. Board reports. Looks like ICTC. Uta, go ahead, please.
I do not have a report. We meet next week.
Okay, very good. Aaron, IU 28. Barb, it's your turn.
There's no December meeting, January meeting questionable, and there won't be a February meeting. All I can say is that if you're interested in applying for the Aaron IU director position, that applications are due soon.
And a question on that, Barb. When is Jim Wagner's effective date of retirement?
Don't quote me. I'm thinking it's June.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, thank you. Tom, academic and extracurricular, your turn.
Thanks, Walter. No committee meeting to report. The only thing on my agenda is the Comprehensive Planning Committee, which we're required to get underway. I move that the board approves the following to serve on the Comprehensive Planning Committee: Michael Vukovic, Robert Heineck, Justin Zvorgic, Aaron Eisenman, Kevin Edmondson, Kelly Urbana, Doug Johnson, Wade McElhaney, Mike Minnick, Kristen Savanjic, Don Springer, Angela McMaster, Shelley Wright, April Morelli, Christine Cook, Paul McHugh, Don Bowers, Jerry Nath, Corey Anderson, Brenda Obarto, Carrie Kinter, Ashley Henning, Steve Cochran, Beth Mock, Tracy Picola, Tim Runge, Mark Hillard, Jim Struzzi, Sarah Teacher Hazler, Mel Meisengale, Brian Peterson, Dale Weisinger, Penny Vick, Yvonne Braden, Walter Schroth, Julie Tamarki Kukuro, Tom Harley, Barbara Barker, and Tamara Leeper. Oof, that's some committee, Mike. I need a second for that.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, moved in second. Mike, would you like to, for the benefit of the public, talk in general terms about the comp plan and then more specifically kind of your vision as to how it will be utilized within the district?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. School districts are required by PA code to conduct a comprehensive plan every 3 years. We're a phase 3 school, so our process is starting now. We have some time to get it done, but we'd like to take advantage of this time and start the process. And what our hope and our goal is make it meaningful and practical. And please, that's not saying they weren't in the past. That's not at all what we're saying. But what we are saying is we kind of want to bring the community and make them aware as part of our outreach efforts academically, make them aware of what our priorities and our plans are in the district, and make them involved and inform stakeholders and have them help shape the district moving forward, because we think there's a lot of great things going on, but we also would argue that good is the enemy of great and there's room for improvement. We want to continue to seek improvement. So what I think this motion does, sir, is bring a collective group of individuals who can help push us and make us forward and help us build a comprehensive plan that meets the whole entire child approach. I think we have reached a time in society where teamwork matters just as much as trigonometry. And we have to work with our school to build a whole child approach and to make sure we have the safety nets and supports in place for each and every child to be successful to the best of our ability. And that's what our plan will do, sir. And I look forward to the process. The one thing I have to correct, I misspelled Yvonne Brandon's name. I believe it's Yvonne Brannon, Branan, and that's something we can change. And I'm appreciative, finally, sir. I'm appreciative with all these stakeholders and teachers who want to come forward and be part of such a collective group. It's an important process. And I'm looking forward to getting ready to move forward in the work, sir.
Okay, Mike, thank you. I have one question. Do you have any idea, not to hold you to a specific date, but a general timeline as to when you might first call the first meeting of this committee to order?
No, great question, Mr. President. What we're probably going to do start in January. What I'm going to do probably by the end of the week, end of this week, is send a letter, email to the team saying, look, here, we're glad to have you on board. Here's what the meetings will look like. They're going to be conducted virtually. And then the first meeting, what we're going to spend time doing, Mr. President, is looking at our value statements. Our value, to me, what value core statements is what the culture is, right? What drives you to your why? What drives you and your organization as a culture? So we're going to start small, right? And what we're going to do, everything we do as an organization, we're going to vet through those value statements to make sure that we're adhering to what we say is important to us as an organization. For example, one of the big things we're going to talk about equity. What does that look like for us? What does that mean beyond mere rhetoric? What does it look like in our policy, in our hiring practices? What does it look like in our academic programming, our staffing, etc.? So we're going to have those fierce conversations as an organization and really get us on the same page with those type of words and those type of concepts mean. One thing I fear, Mr. President, is 2 years ago when I first started here, SEL was the buzzword. Now you hear everyone talking about social emotional learning. And I feel equity is the next buzzword that if we're not careful to understand what that means and how deeply rooted that has to be in an organization, we can blindly skip over that. So we're going to spend a lot of time building capacity. We're going to spend a lot of time building understanding. And then we're going to dive into the work. And we're going to try to do it in a way that's meaningful, manageable for our kids, our staff, and our community, sir.
Okay, Mike, thank you. Any comments, questions, or discussion from board members? I too would like to add my thanks to all those folks who volunteered for this this committee. These long-range strategic plans or comprehensive plan, as this one is described, can be a dust collector, or it can be an active, viable document that actually helps to drive the district in its decision making. And I'm certainly looking forward to seeing that as part of the latter, that it's an active, document that is alive and will help us in our decision making process. So thanks to all for participating in that committee. All right, can we have a vote? Again, we'll vote on the negative here. Anybody that's opposed to this committee, please say nay or no at this point. Nothing heard. The chair assumes that it passed unanimously. Okay, Randy, let's go on down to the next one. Looks like policy and personnel. Uta, your turn.
Okay, I do not have a committee report. We are scheduled to meet in January. So we'll move on to 6.2. I move that the board approves the custodian substitute list as submitted.
Second.
Okay, moved in second. Questions, comments, discussion on that one? Anybody opposed, please say nay or no at this point. Chair assumes that it passed unanimously. Uta, next one.
That's it.
That's it.
We're on to building, grounds, and transportation. Terry.
Terry, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Walter. We had a committee meeting tonight from 5:30 to 7. We talked about 3 agenda items. First one was the Eisenhower Elementary and architect proposal discussion. We spent probably over an hour refining the scope of what the agenda item is tonight for that. Then we talked about the Eisenhower survey bid results. We also had discussion on what that would entail as far as completing a survey on the property for the property corners and lines, and then also all the features and topography that's on the property. And that agenda item is on the agenda tonight. And we talked about the ESCO investment grade audit. Constellation is offered to perform a free audit of the district facilities and then report back on that. So again, that's on the agenda for tonight. And then we briefly discussed bipolar ionization, and Jared and Greg are going to put together a matrix with some cost estimates for each of the buildings and each of the classrooms. It is being considered for that in each of the buildings. I could move on to 7 point. Are we okay with taking all of them together? 7.2, 3, and 4? Are there any other ones below that, Randy? No. Let's take 7.2, 7.3, 7.4. First one is the ESCO investment grade audit. 7.3 is the survey of the Eisenhower property. And 7.4 is the Eisenhower architect proposal.
Second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Uta, your mic was hot. Was there something you wanted to say?
No, sir, I was going to second it, but I wasn't quick enough.
Yeah, you got to be quick on the draw here. Okay.
Walter, I'll just briefly talk about each one of them.
Yes.
The first one, the ESCO, again, Constellation is performing a free audit. We are not obligated to doing anything with that, but it could give us some good opportunities for some return on investment in some energy related things. So it's I'd like to get support for that because there could be some benefit come out of that. The second thing, we had discussed this at a couple committee meetings about doing the Eisenhower property survey. There's a question on the one side, on the McCreary specialty tire side of the property, that we're not exactly sure where the property line is there. But then also this aligns with 7.4, the architect proposal. We're asking Bucart Horn to develop some options to improve the entryway there. A couple of years ago, we had met as the committee and the community and prioritized things. So we did complete, or we're near completion with the East Pike entranceway. Now we're moving on to the Eisenhower entranceway. Bucart's also going to look at the demolishing of those temporary classrooms that were put there about 30 years ago. They're in really horrible condition, and that's been discussed also before about getting rid of those. And they're also going to take a brief look at what a multi-purpose addition would look like there too. So, thanks.
Okay, Terry, thank you. Questions, comments, or discussion from the board on these three motions? Okay, nothing heard. Let's take a roll call on this, Jared, if you would, please.
Yes, sir. Barb Barker,
No.
Tammy Blank,
Yes.
Cinda Brode,
Yes.
Julia Tamarki Kukuro,
Yes.
Tom Harley,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. Leeper,
Yes.
Mrs. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Schroeth.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-1.
Okay, Jared, thank you. We must be down to finance at this point. Julia, it's your turn.
Thanks, Mr. Schroeth. We did have a committee meeting, and that took place on November 23rd. We had 4 agenda items. We discussed borrowing, we looked at the PFM refinancing handouts, and the committee decided against at this point in time until we see what happens with borrowing any new money, but we are in favor of the refinance. And we again talked in depth about the deferred maintenance list and had a pretty good discussion, and we feel we put out our priorities pretty clearly at this point. We also had, for an important motion tonight, we had a budget discussion about preparing and approving a preliminary budget for 2021-22 And we decided that we would not want to exceed the index of 3.7%, which would be very high. So that's the committee's recommendation for tonight. We talked about the board resolution for the IU3 joint purchasing consortium, which is longstanding and something we support at the committee level. And Terry talked a little bit about his business in terms of the Eisenhower survey. And we had a brief audit update and a biopolar ionization. We had a brief report for the ESCO project. So it was a good meeting. One thing I wanted to point out tonight before we go to the motions is that tonight on the bills paid, some of you might have seen that on the petty cash, we saw a $950,000 transfer. And I kind of was like, whoa, what's that? Well, it turns out, as I asked Jared, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jared, but that was the actual cash transfer from the general fund to the capital reserve fund that we approved back in October. So that's correct, Jared?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That was I'm sorry. Yep, you're correct.
Yeah, I didn't think the number was coincidental, but the bills paid seemed rather routine, lots of the medical and whatnot, but that one stood out to me. The other thing, I was surprised on the 5,000 section of the report to the board, that's the reconciliation report that I saw. We're putting in the general fund budget at $750,000, or the reserve for the budget. And I thought, now, why did it go that high? And I couldn't remember, because usually we do a different number. So Jared, do you want to explain what that's all about? Why we have an additional $500,000 in there?
Yes, ma'am. In a typical year, we try and budget around $250,000 in there. And that is for any unexpected cost that may come up during a year that isn't part of the normal budget. It gives us a little kind of cushion area for any unexpected costs, such as, an outside placement for students, an additional teacher needed, a increase in cyber school costs, those type of things that may happen that aren't budgeted for. The 2021 budget, which is right now at $750,000, is $500,000 additional because of some teachers that we did not rehire at the beginning of the year. But we wanted to leave in there just in case we did need them. And at this point, we are using that money for the additional teachers we needed to properly social distance our students in the elementary schools. Is what we're mainly using those funds for right now. We may not use all of it on them, depending on how long we need to keep those teachers in place. But we monitor that throughout the year, and then the board decides every year at budget time how much they would like that to be to start the next school year with.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't quite know what that 500,000. So now I understand you put it on that line item. So I think it's 5,900. I think that's the line item, something like that. So if you happen to have a chance to look at that, you'll see that's actually the money. That's our cushion. That was our cushion in the budget. So I think. And then, of course, we recommend Jared be reappointed as the Indiana County Tax Collection Committee. So I think, unless anybody has an objection, and I can't scroll down, does anybody want me to take these motions separately? Okay. Does anybody have a question? Okay, so can we scroll back up? So I think I would move, because one way or the other, we've been discussing all of these motions. I think we've all been pretty clear on what we want to do. 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, 8.5, the assessment appeal, and 8.6, I would move that we second those. I would move that we make those motions.
Second.
Jared, could I ask you to explain a little bit, just off the top, for all of our benefit, the assessment appeal and what's happened to us here and why we're doing this?
Yes, ma'am. The assessment appeal is a recent decision. We had two larger properties in the district appeal their assessment. And what we are going to do, what this motion authorizes is the administration to work with our solicitor to appeal the recent decision by the county assessment board on these two pieces of property. It reduces their assessed value, which costs the district real estate taxes. We feel we may have a possibility of reducing their reduction in assessed value is our hope. Not certain that we can do that, but we feel that $1,500 is a small amount to hopefully help offset what could be a $46,000 reduction in annual property taxes on those two properties if their new assessed value that was set is held at that amount.
Okay. And when is the appeal? It's due.
It is due December 12th.
Okay. Okay. So we'll open it up if anybody has any questions.
Okay, thank you, Julia, for that. We moved in seconded on those motions. Do we have any additional comments, questions, or further discussion by the board members on motions 8.2 through 8.6 inclusive? Okay, the only thing that I would like to add onto the assessment appeal, my understanding that these two particular properties are predominantly some form of student housing, or at least that makes up a majority of their clientele, and I think we're starting to see some of the impacts on the community that the changes that IUP is going through, and whether they be the direct financial or just their student enrollment, this is one of the side effects that we as a community have to bear because of that. Is there any other discussion or comments on this? Okay, at this point in time, we'll vote in the negative on these. I'm sorry. I do want to emphasize on Act 1, it's something that other board members have usually done at 8.6. Again, I want to reiterate for the benefit of the taxpayers, all we are saying here is that we will not exceed the 3.7% as calculated by PDE. That doesn't mean we're going to raise them to that level. It would be my hope again that we would look at a zero tax increase for next year. But this is a legal requirement that we are forced to do or compelled to do by the provisions of Act 1. Okay, all those.
Oh, Walter, what, Mr. Rapak, we don't need a separate motion for Act 1, do we? I don't think so.
I'm not sure what you mean by a separate motion. The motion you have here is fine.
Rather than in bank with other motions.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, you're fine. You don't have to vote on it separately.
Yeah,
No.
and that just reminds me to say, Walter, that I think the committee did at our meeting agree that we would continue it to budget at a 0% tax increase. Not that we, it doesn't mean we will or wouldn't raise taxes, but if we were to, it wouldn't go beyond 3.7. Thank you.
Yeah, Julia, thanks for that reminder that it was discussed in the committee as well. But again, we may have a different audience. I want to make it very clear we're not in any way, shape, or form suggesting or recommending. This is primarily a legal requirement that Act 1 compels us to take action one way or the other. At this point in time, we'll vote in the negative. Anybody opposed to passing any of these motions, please say no or nay at this point. Nothing heard. The chair assumes that all of them have passed unanimously. Okay, Randy, next item. I think we're down to the closing now, if I'm not
Walter,
mistaken.
Yes. This is
Go ahead.
I'd like to propose a motion for the board to consider to move the bipolarization project ahead. These are critical machines to get into the schools. I'd like to make a motion to authorize administration to move forward with the bipolarization project not to exceed $70,000. and at least discuss it, but I need a second.
Okay, Tom is suggesting a motion here to move forward with the bipolar. Is there anybody interested in seconding his motion?
I'm sorry to bring it up. I think it's a critical thing.
I will point out, it dies for the lack of for the second, but I will point out that if the longer we delay this, the longer it takes before you actually put that infrastructure in the buildings. And if we bring it back in January, then it maybe means that it's in March or whatever before some of this may be installed. Okay, I think we're now down to the closing. Go ahead. Okay, there are no discussion items. Is there any public comment 9.2 on agenda items? Please say now. Okay, nothing heard. We had some enclosures this evening, conference reports and enrollment reports. We did have an executive session to discuss a legal matter. There will be a regular meeting in January the 11th, 2021 for general purposes. Please note that this will be the only board meeting in December. May I have a motion to adjourn, please? Oh, I'm sorry. Got a little ahead of myself. Our next committee meetings are academic January the 4th, policy personnel January the 11th, buildings, grounds, and transportation on the 18th, and audit and finance on the 25th at 5:30. Now may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved and second. Anybody opposed to it? Chair assumes unanimous approval. We stand adjourned. Thank you all for coming and attending this evening.
Thanks, Walter. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Josh,
Good night.
are you okay, Josh? Before
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
good, so we're doing well.
All right.
Good night, Al.
Questions to start off with. Let's talk about Julia. How much will 3.7% mean to the average taxpayer? I know that is the maximum, but I'm just wondering how much that is.
Well, one mill's about 1.2 million, so I guess you'd have to, it's a roughly, if you put it in at about 1 million, so I guess you can kind of calculate that from there.
So,
I think Jared knows the exact millage. What it
Jared?
would be reduced to in people's pocket, considerable. That number is a full point beyond, I think, what it was last year.
mm-hmm.
So they set the index really high, but that's a statewide number. We don't really get a choice on that. But
Mr.
Jared,
Cronin?
I don't know what that would mean for an average household with a home that's worth, I don't know, $100,000. I'm not quite sure what that would. I'd have to sit down and do the math. But as I remember, each mill is about 1.2 million.
I would say probably for the average household would be somewhere around $75 if we go to the max.
Okay, that's a good thing there. That's good to know. Mr. Vukovic, I believe I'm trying to get to my notes here. Oh gosh, so many meetings, so little time. I guess the new project is going to be the Eisenhower Entryway, Mr. Vukovic?
Thanks, Josh. I wouldn't say it's a new project. What we're doing is we authorized the board authorized the architect firm to look at some options for improving security at Eisenhower. What we're going to do, no decision was made as far as what that looks like. They're just empowering the architect firm to go in, look at some conceptual designs and present it back to the board. And that will be handled through the Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation Committee. So yes, in nature, we're starting to look at that, but to say it's a finalized go, yes or no, we're not there yet, Josh, but it's the process that we just started.
Okay, all right. So starting the process, getting ideas at this point, right?
Absolutely, sir, absolutely.
All right. Tom, are you still on?
He's not.
I guess not. What is the bipolarization project then, Michael?
Yeah, one thing we're looking at do is how we can maintain safe environments during this time of COVID and all times. And bipolar ionization helps with the cleaning of the air, and we're looking at different opportunities, air purifiers, different things out there to help continue to maintain a safe environment for our kids as we battle through this pandemic and our staff. So at this point, no decisions have been made. We're looking at different options, and we're not ready to commit to anything at this time, sir.
Right. So would this be a project then for all the schools?
Yes, sir. Hypothetically, it could be, absolutely. Depending on some different variables, but it could be for all schools. Yes, sir.
All right. And just to double check, Julia, this is just for board president and vice president. Walter was reelected board president and you vice president?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Sorry, I've had to juggle 3 meetings tonight, so it's been a bit difficult.
You did very well.
If Chauncey's still here, I'll yield to him.
I'm good. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everyone.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good
night.
evening.
Thank you.
Good night. And Merry Christmas if I don't see you.